Waka. I'm not. I was gonna tell a joke. I'm not going to now. You ruined me.
I was going to be a
Let
professional on
Daddy
the show. But I'm not doing
decide.
that. All right. Should we drop the bad dad joke segment? Yes, Daddy has decided.
No, we cannot.
Do I get a vote?
All right, Kurt,
If
you're
you
the notes,
think
aren't
we
you?
should drop our bad dad joke, you should
Donate to your
nope,
dad.
wrong one.
Donate
Call
to
You
your
can do that
daddy
too.
and leave a voicemail.
Patreon.com.
I didn't touch anything. That is
Daddy,
all Bookie
Leave a
Boy.
voicemail.
All the buttons.
/call dad.
Call us and leave us a speech
Oh,
bite.
that
That is
That's what Joe did. He's like a kid in the elevator.
Time. If you want to avoid technical difficulties like these, go to patreon.com/wise and nerdy.
Are we ding dong ditching now? Is that what we're doing with all these buttons? So, all right. Kurt, well, will you read the question for Let Daddy Decide?
Can I reword it?
Yeah, because I don't want to read it. The way it's phrased is like going back to that kid in the trunk thing.
Who do you prioritize, your spouse or your kids? And who writes these questions?
That one, you know who wrote that one. See, it's me and you didn't want to read it. You know who read that. But that was a good phrasing. That was a good
Thank you.
phrasing, sir.
Professional broadcaster. So who do
Hey,
you
Joe.
prioritize, Joe?
My wife. 100% my wife.
My wife.
Because if you don't prioritize your wife first, your kids are gonna fall behind anyway. Period. So if you don't have that strong foundation, it's not gonna work.
Give me an example of a situation where you had to choose. The church got something.
I have answers. But I'm in a different place than you guys are. So this is why I'm really interested in this.
Let's hear your answer.
No, you can't get out of answering that fast. So yeah, give a good situation.
Just like when it comes to taking sides, for instance, because your kids are going to argue with your wife. Always side with your wife first, and then if you in the moment, and if you have to, talk about it after. In my opinion, Charles is giving me a look.
I actually conditionally agree. Conditionally, but that's
Okay,
kind of a cop-out answer.
There's got to be some conditions. It's like, because if she's flat out wrong, I've definitely been in the middle of a fight and did that TV moment of like, yeah, wait, what'd you say? No, well, okay, your mom's a little off on that one. I'm not going to agree with that one. But the point is this.
So I guess Joe, and please, because you did write this question, right? So
and I did preface it by saying, in the moment, and I said talk to your wife after if there's an issue.
I still disagree with that because you're teaching your kids to lie.
Well,
or to be one-sided about things. It's us against them. I don't agree with that.
Fine. What? The audio just changed something fierce somewhere. But in the moment, you don't. Okay, maybe I should rephrase. Don't disagree with your wife in front of your kids in the moment.
I still disagree with that. Why? If she is not correct, or if there's another aspect to look at, I think teaching that I feel that when you're not disagreeing with your wife in the moment, that you're teaching them to be one-sided, and that makes it us against them, and they can sense that it's not a real thing. Because if you talk to her after, you're like, well, I'm not saying fight with your spouse. I am saying that I will be honest, like, hey, sometimes you're wrong, kid, and sometimes I don't agree with what she's saying. My wife, that kind of thing. But if it's, and same, my wife does the same thing though. If I'm in a mood, right, and I'm yelling about stuff and I'm wrong about it, she won't agree that when I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying?
So there's a balance there, and I think and I tend to agree with both of you, but in a different way. So I think that there's value to a united front, because the kids are subservient. They just are, because they have to be, because they have no life experience. They can't be trusted to make their own decisions like that, particularly the younger they are. So there's value in, but there's also value in not necessarily agreeing with your wife and saying, I'll talk about it on the side. But the in between, the balance there is you can go, I understand what you're talking about, kids, whatever the heck it is. I'll tell you what, your mother and I are going to talk about it. And that's it. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're not saying, no, your mother's wrong. You're not saying that. And
Yeah.
you're not saying, you're right. You're not saying that. You're saying, I need to talk to your mother about it. And then you go off and you have your private conversation, which is kind of where Joe was going on that.
Sure.
But you're not just acquiescing either.
I just see Joe. I'm the man of the house, woman. You obey. Bam,
Right.
that's what she does. Kelsey
So-
just comes off the bedpost, elbow to the face. I'll show you obey.
But
Curtain
I
right
am
gutter
also
phrasing.
I am also going to say, though, that answer still stinks on ice, because the question was, who do you prioritize? And prioritization has nothing to do with taking the side of. It's if push comes to shove. Here, let me give you a better for instance, and that is, who are you saving first, your wife or your kids?
Oh, my wife all day long. My kids know how to swim or run off a fire or whatever. Now, ask my wife who she's saving first. She'll list the kids off in order, then the dogs, then the cat, and then somewhere she hopes I got out alive.
So I think it also changed.
She's just gonna yell at you, "Get out!"
Yeah, basically.
So I think it changes. I think it changes throughout your life. When my kids were young, my kids were my priority. Like and what I mean by that is, if I have to choose between my wife and my kids, if I had to, for a choice, my kids, because my kids were unable to protect themselves at the level that my wife was.
Yeah,
So
just put on the situation, I guess.
And if it was a choice between prioritizing feeding my wife or kids, I'm feeding my kids first. Now,
did you have to make that choice, Skirt?
no, no, but I have
Okay.
had to make choices about, do I even get this thing for my wife, or do I get this thing for my kids?
Sure.
And that could be everything from clothing to supplies for school. I don't know, but when money's tight, you have to make choices, right? And
I think we're talking about a straw man argument here with the whole prioritizing everything we're talking about is situational, and everything we're talking about is the flow of life and what is actually needed in the moment.
So, okay, you're right. You're right on that level. That's why I said it changes. So, like, now, my kids are adults, and my wife is disabled. So my priority, if I'm picking versus, my wife all day long, because she needs me to prioritize her.
And that's the flow of life right now. Yeah.
Right.
Because they can.
So that's why I think Joe's argument was
I want to come back to what was it, Joe, that you and your wife and your kids were fighting about this week, that you decided to bring this question to the table? Because this is where Daddy can really decide, was Joe right or not? Kelsey, fast forward.
No, I actually heard this question posed on a Facebook short, and I thought it would be a good discussion here. And so, yeah.
How do you feel now?
I mean, do you feel like it's a good discussion now?
Yeah.
It's a very good discussion.
Look, I'll tell you.
We don't have to agree for it to be a good discussion.
Oh, no,
and I think
when we
society
don't
at
agree is
large
the best.
has forgotten that. Society at large has forgotten that it's
And
okay
yet-
to disagree.
And yet, your whole premise is agree with your wife until you get to the back room and go, woman, what's wrong with you?
Well, and I have heard people say that they will argue, like not yell at each other, but will argue and debate with their wife in front of their kids, specifically so that their kids will see how a healthy relationship deals with things like that when there is disagreement between the spouses.
Oh, we've done knockdown, drag out fights, not intentionally. You know, we didn't intend to do it in front of kids, but we did. But we also make sure that the resolution is in front of them as well.
Yeah, well, and I'll say this: I will never criticize my wife in front of my kids.
Our house is totally different. We rag on each other, and I mean not just in jest. There's some we speak in truth. It's like your dad's an asshole today. It's like, yeah, you know, can't really argue with that. It really was being one, you know, and vice versa.
You're like, hey kids, clip this. We're gonna need it at the divorce hearings.
You know, I have joked around with my kids when they tried me. I was like, there's a reason there's 4 of you. It's because one of you can go missing and nobody's going to care. I could just keep practicing on the other ones. It's fine.
They're homemade. Just sell them on Etsy.
And I told them the truth. Like, so my wife, I think it's a detriment. She disagrees. But 100%, if there was something that I wanted to do and something that the kids had, it could have been the 50th ball game of the week. She'll pick that every time. And she doesn't apologize for it. I'm like, that's kind of why we need to see in the past. That's why we need to see some therapists, you know, because there needs to be a balance there. But I told my kids, like, look, I married her. I made you. That's a whole different ball game.
I chose her. You just came along with the package.
I mean, and I just made it clear, like it is just a different ball game, right?
Kurt's rolling his eyes.
I chose him in a way, but it's like when I told him when you're gone, it's me and her. It's just me and her against the world. So there's going to be some different relationship building, and you know, I learned the hard way the difference between my mother and my father's wife, right? And that was a very hard discussion to be had one day, but he never understood that difference, and that helped me. I was like, dude, it's a whole long story, but he's like, you're talking to my wife's like, no, I'm not. I am not speaking to your wife at all. I am speaking to my mother that I have a very broken relationship with, and that's a whole different. I did not phrase it nearly that wisely or nerdy, but see what I did. Wise and nerdy working it. But come on, Joe, you gotta give me something to sink my teeth into. When's the time that you sided with your wife, but you disagreed with her?
So not from my personal life, but from my neighbor across the street, really good friend of mine, and his wife spent so much time, and I get it. They were her kids. She had the kids before they got married.
Oh, well, that's a whole different ballgame.
But she spent all of her time in 3 categories: work, running. She was very addicted to running,
and
like crazy addicted. Or
I don't know why that was so funny.
or
I think that just hit so weird.
oh man.
Oh, that's gonna be the name of the shop. Put it in the notes.
The third one was with her kids. Like, she very heavily prioritized her kids over her husband. And he worked from home. They only had one vehicle, and she had that vehicle almost all the time, to the point where he felt trapped in his own home by himself. And they've since divorced, but
I'm about to say, Joe, we're talking about some deeper damage that's going on. This is not about the kids getting in the way.
They were basically roommates, because that's how much time she spent with him. And he expressed as much to her and to us as well. And so it was a bad situation. They got divorced, and since they've been divorced, both of her daughters have flown out and spent vacations with him because they absolutely loved him. He adored her kids. And yeah, like he tried running with her just to spend some time with her, and then he messed up his knee something fierce, and so he couldn't do that. And
She Nancy Kerrigan. I can't say it. You got the joke there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was very, very detrimental that she put him as such a low priority, and ultimately it ended that relationship.
So we're talking extremes, though, right?
Because you're not wrong. That is
because
pretty extreme.
prioritizing my wife or prioritizing my kids does not mean to the detriment of any other relationship. That just means I have different priorities. That's all. And so it sounds like that person was all or nothing. And life doesn't work that way. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can be both things are very important. Both things are important. It's just if you have to prioritize, which one are you going with?
Well, yeah. I think it's pretty clear for any of our listeners that Charles and I and Kurt as well, we love our wives and our kids. Period.
Not so sure about
Charles.
Charles.
Is like, okay, I love my wife. My kids. He's like, you've gone too far, Joe.
I will say this: if I ever, for any reason, become some kind of stepdaddy, I'm beating that kid to the punch and be like, "I ain't your daddy. Don't be coming and ask me for God. Don't tell me I'm not your daddy. I don't tell you I'm not your daddy. You're your mama for every damn thing. I don't care." So,
for comments and concerns, please consult the manufacturer.
I was, and then the other thing, when you're talking about like an argument with the kid or what, it definitely depends on the kid's age and this and that, and that, blah blah blah. But the parameters need to be set like we're aiming towards the same goal. We're aiming towards the goal of the betterment of you. And sometimes, like if it's something simple as like my daughter kept wanting all these stupid face piercings, and sometimes it can look good on somebody, and like it doesn't look good on you. You've done the fake ones, and it doesn't work, and you want to and you're about to enter the age of being in jobs. But what my wife and I settled on those talks was, well, we have to be on the same page. When we're not on the same page, we're not going to move forward. And that's it for us. It's within the parameters of moving towards what's best for the kid. If it's a discipline thing, we can disagree in the topic, but we're still moving towards the same direction. Going, no, the behavior is not good. We're going to figure out how to deal with it. So I thought it was an interesting question that you have.